German airship, the age of zeppelin travel, the 1937 disaster at Lakehurst, and the sudden end of a dream of luxury flight. So sit back, get comfortable, and imagine a vast silver airship moving silently through evening clouds. Tonight we're going to speak softly about the Hindenburg crash. The Hindenburg was a German passenger airship, officially LZ-129 Hindenburg. It was one of the largest flying machines ever built, a rigid airship with an internal metal framework, gas cells, engines, passenger spaces, crew areas, and a long silver body that made it look almost unreal in the sky. Airships belonged to an earlier vision of aviation. Before long-distance passenger airplanes became dominant, zeppelins offered a way to cross oceans in relative comfort. Passengers aboard Hindenburg could dine, sleep, look through windows, and travel across the Atlantic in a floating hotel-like environment. The ship used hydrogen for lift. Hydrogen is light and effective, but highly flammable. Helium would have been safer, but geopolitical and supply issues meant the Hindenburg flew with hydrogen. This fact became central to the disaster. On May 6, 1937, Hindenburg approached the Naval Air Station at Lakehurst, New Jersey, after a transatlantic flight from Germany. Weather had delayed the landing. As the airship manoeuvred near its mooring mast, it caught fire and was destroyed in less than a minute. The disaster killed 36 people, including passengers, crew, and one member of the ground crew. Many others survived, some by jumping or escaping from the wreckage. The images and radio reporting made the crash one of the most famous disasters of the 20th century. The exact ignition source remains debated. The leading explanations involve a hydrogen fire, possibly triggered by static electricity after the airship passed through unsettled weather, with the outer covering and gas cells contributing to the spread. Sabotage theories existed, but evidence has generally favoured accident explanations. The Hindenburg disaster is famous partly because it was recorded. Newsreel cameras were present. Radio reporter Herbert Morrison's emotional broadcast became historic. The public did not only read about the crash, they could see and hear traces of it. This changed how the disaster entered memory. It became an image, a great airship burning near the mast, a technological marvel collapsing in front of cameras. Modern media turned a local catastrophe into a shared historical moment. The Hindenburg was also connected to politics. It flew under Nazi Germany, and its tail fins carried symbols of the regime. Airship travel was not only transportation, it was also prestige, national display, and propaganda. The disaster therefore belongs to both aviation history and the uneasy politics of the 1930s. For passengers, however, the flight was also personal. They were travellers with luggage, plans, families, jobs and destinations. The crew were workers responsible for navigation, engines, service and safety. A famous machine can make us forget the people inside it. Airship travel had real elegance. It was quieter than early airplanes, slower, spacious and visually striking. But it was vulnerable to weather, ground handling challenges, expensive operations and the dangers of lifting gas. The Hindenburg crash damaged public confidence in passenger airships almost permanently. After 1937, the age of giant passenger zeppelins faded. airplanes became faster, safer, and more practical over time. The Hindenburg disaster became a symbolic end, even though airship technology itself did not vanish entirely. The lesson of Hindenburg is not simply that one technology failed, it is that public confidence can disappear quickly when a visible catastrophe reveals hidden risk. A machine may seem graceful, modern, and majestic until its vulnerability becomes impossible to ignore. To understand the Hindenburg, it helps to imagine the romance of airship travel before the disaster. A zeppelin did not feel like a modern airplane. It moved more slowly, with a sense of drifting above weather and ocean. Passengers could walk, dine, look down at clouds, and experience travel as a long suspended passage rather than a cramped flight. Hindenburg crossed the Atlantic in a world where flight was still astonishing. Commercial aviation existed, but long-distance passenger service was not yet the familiar system it would become. Airships promised range and comfort. They made the sky feel almost nautical, as if the ocean liner had risen into the clouds. Inside the Hindenburg, weight mattered. Designers had to balance comfort against lift, furniture, materials, food, water, mail, passengers, and cargo all belonged to calculations. A luxurious airship still had to obey physics. Every elegant room was part of a machine, depending on gas, engines, weather, and crew skill. The landing procedure at Lakehurst required coordination between the airship and ground crew. Mooring a giant airship was not simple. Weather, wind, ballast, altitude, ropes, engines, and timing all mattered. The final approach was a delicate operation, not merely an arrival. The crash became unforgettable because it destroyed a symbol in public view. People had gathered, expecting to watch a great machine land. Instead, they watched confidence collapse. The newsreel images turned technology into tragedy in less than a minute. Herbert Morrison's broadcast is remembered for its emotion, but it also reminds us that reporters are human witnesses. He did not know he was creating one of the most famous pieces of disaster audio. He was reacting to a terrible event unfolding in front of him. Afterward, investigators examined possible causes: hydrogen, static electricity, weather conditions, leaks, fabric coating, and handling procedures. The exact chain remains debated, but the broader result was clear. Public trust in hydrogen passenger airships was broken. Airships did not disappear completely. Blimps and lighter-than-air craft continued in advertising, surveillance, research, and specialized uses. But the dream of giant luxury passenger zeppelins crossing the Atlantic faded. Hindenburg became the end of an imagined future. The Hindenburg also carried mail. Letters crossed the Atlantic inside the airship, turning the zeppelin into part of a communication network as well as a passenger vehicle. Some pieces of mail survived the crash, damaged by fire and water, and became historical artifacts. This detail makes the airship feel more human. Inside the great silver machine were not only engines and gas cells, but messages, business letters, personal notes, stamps, envelopes, and ordinary words travelling between continents. The passenger spaces were carefully designed. Because hydrogen filled much of the airship, smoking was restricted to a special pressurized room. Even leisure had to be engineered around risk. A lounge, dining space, and promenade windows created comfort inside a machine that required constant technical awareness. Crew discipline was essential. Airship crews had to understand navigation, weather, engines, ballast, gas pressure, structural behavior, and landing procedures. The calm image of a zeppelin floating through the sky depended on continuous work. Weather was always a serious factor. Airships were large and sensitive to wind. Ground handling could be difficult because a ship the size of Hindenburg still had to be guided by ropes, engines, ballast, and human coordination. Landing was one of the most delicate parts of the flight. The Hindenburg disaster also illustrates how quickly an industry can lose its future. Before the crash, airships still seemed possible as luxury transatlantic transport. Afterward, the public imagination shifted. The same silhouette that had once represented elegance now represented danger. Aviation moved on. Airplanes became faster, more reliable, and more economically practical. The sky that airships had entered, slowly and gracefully, would belong increasingly to fixed-wing aircraft. Still, there is a kind of melancholy beauty in airship history. It was a road not taken, a future that hovered for a while and then faded. The Hindenburg remains not only a disaster, but a reminder that history contains abandoned futures. The design also reflected careful compromise. The airship needed strength without excessive weight. Its aluminum alloy framework held shape, while gas cells provided lift. Engines gave motion. Fins helped control. Crew members moved through narrow passageways inside a structure that was both enormous and delicate. Passengers saw comfort, but engineers saw balances, lift, ballast, fuel, weather, gas pressure, structural stress, and landing conditions. This is often true of technology. The user experiences elegance, the operator manages fragility. The disaster did not happen in isolation from earlier airship history. Zeppelins have been used in war, exploration, mail service, and passenger travel. The Graf Zeppelin, another famous airship, had completed impressive flights and helped demonstrate what lighter-than-air travel could do. Hindenburg inherited both that promise and its risks. Lakehurst itself was part of the airship world. Mooring masts, ground crews, hangars, weather reports, and arrival procedures made the site a stage for transatlantic flight. A landing was meant to be a routine public event, watched by reporters because airship arrivals were newsworthy, but not expected to be catastrophic. The speed of the fire shaped memory. Some disasters unfold over hours, allowing many stages of response. Hindenburg unfolded in seconds. That speed made it shocking and visually unforgettable. A machine that had crossed an ocean was destroyed at the threshold of arrival. Survival stories also complicate the image. Many aboard did escape. Some jumped, some climbed, some were helped, some were burned, some were shaken but alive. The disaster was deadly but not total. Its memory should include both those who died and those who carried the memory forward. The end of the passenger airship era also tells us that technology depends on trust. People may accept risk when benefits feel worth it, but public trust can be fragile. Once the Hindenburg burned in front of cameras, the emotional calculation changed. Today, airships still appear in specialized forms, but the old dream of silver luxury liners crossing oceans above the clouds belongs mostly to history. It is a beautiful, lost future, and a dangerous one. As we close, imagine an airship hangar after midnight. The mooring mast stands outside. The sky is empty. A radio microphone rests on a table. The future of travel has quietly turned in another direction. The Hindenburg remains in memory because it combined beauty, danger, media, politics, and the end of an era. Tonight, let the silver shape drift through clouds one last time, slowly and silently, before history changes course. I want to thank you for listening to Whisper University. If you made it all the way to the end, I'm very glad you are here. I hope tonight's quiet lesson helped you relax, learn something new, or simply drift for a little while in a calmer direction. If you enjoyed this whispered lecture, you can support Whisper University by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, or leaving a gentle comment with a topic you would like to hear next. It helps this little university grow and helps us keep making the world a little more relaxed and a little more curious through ASMR. Until the next quiet lesson, take care, breathe slowly and rest well.